Hi everyone, welcome back to Mentor Monday. My name's Lisa Ireland and I'm an Australian author of contemporary fiction. Today on Mentor Monday, I want to talk to you about finding the time to write. This is one of the things that writers, and not just beginning writers, that all sorts of writers struggle with all the time, including myself, but I've over the years worked out a few tips and tricks that I'm going to share with you now. Now, I know what you're thinking. If you've read my bio, you know who I am and you know that I'm a full-time writer, and you're thinking, well, that's just great. You've got all day to write. How are you going to help me with this? Of course you've got the time to write. But let me assure you, it wasn't always so. I started out writing when many years ago, trying to be published. So in my pre-publication days, I had 3 small children. So when I first started to write seriously, I had a primary age child, a kindergarten age child, so a preschool child, and a baby, a toddler, a quite small toddler. I had 2 parents who sadly were quite ill. My mum was chronically ill and my dad was terminally ill, and my parents both died before I was published. So in that time when I was really working hard on my first book, both my parents passed away, but I had been partially responsible for their care, so that took up a lot of my time. And I was also working outside of the home as well as a teacher, and I had at one stage during this period, I also had my own business as a professional organiser. So as you can see, I was quite busy. So I really wanted to have my first book published. I really desperately wanted to write, but there was none of these things could be given up. Like, I couldn't just suddenly not be a mum, or I couldn't just say to my parents, well, you go and look after yourself, because they weren't able to. We needed the money that was coming in from my casual teaching and from my business, so I couldn't give those up at that particular time. And so I was stuck. I really, really wanted to be a writer, but I just didn't have any wiggle room to give up any of these other important things in my life. So I learned to write in the cracks. And so what do I mean by cracks? I think lots of us have decided or have been given the idea by other writers or by the media, movies, whatever, that to be a serious writer, you must sit at a desk for hours and hours and hours at a time and fully concentrate on, you have this, wait for your muse to come and have candles burning and music playing or complete silence or the perfect conditions to write. And I think for me, I've learned to let go of that idea, particularly if you want to write commercial fiction, if you want to produce fiction consistently. So if you write literary fiction and you're going to produce a book maybe once every 5 years or 10 years, you might have the luxury of being able to wait till the muse speaks to you. But for those of us that write commercial fiction and that are expected to produce a book a year or thereabouts, book every couple of years maybe, we're on a pretty tight turnaround. And so we need to learn to write when conditions are not perfect. And having said that, once you get the words down on the page, it's much easier to make them perfect or as close to perfect as you can. So I'm not advocating writing rubbish. I'm not advocating just writing any old thing and churning it out. I'm talking about getting your first draft of your book onto your page, and then you can spend the time crafting it once you've actually got the whole idea down. Sorry, I've got a scratch. I'm sitting in my office and I've had the window open and I've now got a tickly nose. I think from all the pollen that's coming in springtime here in Australia. Anyway, So I guess what I'm saying to you is let go of perfect, let go of perfect prose in your first draft. Don't worry about it being perfect, sounding perfect, reading perfectly. Just get the story down and let go of the idea of the perfect situation to write in a closed off office with your candles burning and your music playing or whatever. That, for many of us, that's not going to happen. So what did I do when I was in that situation, when I had my small children and my parents and my jobs, and I wanted to be a writer? As I said, I learned to write in the cracks. And for me, for everyone else, the cracks might be different, but for me at that time, these were the cracks that I identified. When I looked at my week overall, I found there was dead time in my week, time where I was waiting. So I identified about 15 minutes every single day where I was waiting in the car for my primary age child to come out to the car to me. This wasn't perfect. I had a toddler in the car seat behind me, but I found ways to amuse the toddler if he wasn't asleep. So I invested in some games and things that would keep the toddler amused. Thankfully, he was a very placid child, my third child. Even resorted to a few, snacks at times, emergency jelly snakes in the glove box. Anyway, I would keep the toddler amused and I would write on a laptop for 15 minutes every day. That actually adds up over a week to, a reasonable amount of writing. Was it good writing? Probably not. But I got my ideas down. And for the days when maybe that didn't work out because the toddler was grizzly or whatever, and I was distracted, or the laptop battery was dead or whatever, I've always got a little notebook like this in my handbag. And so I would, instead of actually working on the story, I would, maybe work out plot problems or write down character notes. Anything that I thought could help with the story, I would work on in that 15 minutes in the car. Other dead time during the week wasn't always as regular, but there was definitely places where I could eke out a little bit of writing. So I learned to take either my notebook or my laptop with me everywhere I went. I, for instance, was doing a lot of hospital visiting. So when my dad was really sick, I spent a lot of time with him in the hospital, and a lot of that time was just waiting around in waiting rooms or sitting by the bed while he was asleep. So I would make sure that if I had to be in the hospital with Dad, that I packed my laptop with me and I'd do as much writing as I could while I was there. I also would often be required to take my mum to appointments, and so if I was taking mum to an appointment, I'd pack the laptop then, and while I was waiting for her to come out of her seeing her doctor or whatnot, 15, 20 minutes, whatever. Sometimes those you can get stuck in a waiting room for a really long time. I pretty much took and I still, this is a habit that I've still got. I always take my laptop wherever I go, just in case, I get stuck waiting for something and, 10 or 15 minutes crop up, and then I can work on my book. For instance, today I've been to the hairdresser. And I took my laptop with me. I actually didn't write any words today. I was in a sort of a funny mood, and but I worked on other stuff, which will free up my writing time later in the week. So I worked on email and admin stuff so that the time at the hairdresser wasn't wasted. And you might think, wow, I don't really want to do that. I don't really want to, I like when I go to the hairdresser, I like to get the head massage and I like to relax, and I don't want to, ruin it by having to take my laptop. And that's okay. Find cracks that work for you. But there will be cracks, and what I would say to you is, if you really want to be a published author, you'll find the time. You might have to sacrifice something. My friend Nikki Edwards, who's some of you will know, is an author of small town fiction, and she rarely watches TV. So that's the sacrifice she's made. She's a nurse, and she has a working life, and she's a mum and a wife, and she's got a very full life. And so for her, she writes often at night, and she sacrificed TV. Now, that's not a sacrifice I'm prepared to make. I love my TV. I'm addicted, but I make other sacrifices. And like I said, now it's my day job, so that's actually something that I don't have to worry about as much anymore. But as I said, I still take my laptop everywhere with me. Okay, so you've identified some cracks, and like I said, that 15-minute time that I found each day when my son was in primary school, my eldest son was in primary school, that actually added up to quite a bit of writing over the week. And I added that to one solid afternoon. I had one afternoon at home with the toddler who would sleep in the afternoon. So I would get like 2 or 3 hours on one afternoon a week, which would be my writing time, and then I'd make up the rest in the cracks. And that actually added up to a whole novel after a little while. So identify your cracks, and if you can add even just one decent session a week, that will add up to a lot of words over time. Now, what about making the most of your time, particularly if you've got a big writing session, or if you're like me and it's not a matter of finding the time, you have the time, but you don't maybe make the most of it. And I guess that's where I'm at now. Here's some tricks to help you with that. I can't recommend enough that you get yourself some accountability partners, that you form a little group and do what I like to call, and many other writers like to call, sprints. So a writing sprint works like this. You get together online with your little group, and it can be just one other person or as many as you like. And you set a start and a finish time, and then you report your words back at the end of the time. Now, of course, nobody really cares how many words you write, only you care. But there's something mildly competitive about it. For me, I don't want to be shamed. I don't want to have to come back and report to the group that I did no words. So usually I'm always, in my sprinters group, I'm usually the person that writes the least words, because I am quite slow. But it doesn't matter. It helps me just to focus just on writing. And so during your sprint time, you don't answer any social media. You turn all social media off, all email, phone, everything's off for the allotted time. So it could be 15 minutes, it could be 20 minutes, it could be half an hour. Short is good, because you really focus in on the work, and then the reward is then you come back and you report your words to your sprinting partners, and then you have a little chat. So you get a little bit of social time in between your sprints. And often I'll write more that way because I'm encouraged by the other people who are saying, oh, I'm going to do one more. And I think, oh, okay, I've got time for one more too. So it helps me to focus and stay on task. So get a sprinting group to make the most of your writing time. And that's whether you're pressed for time or whether you're not, that can really help you get the words out. Another trick that I have is to every morning orientate myself to the manuscript. So what I mean by that is that the first thing I do when I wake up, when I come downstairs, is I open up the document on my computer and look at it. Even if I am not going to write anything right then, because most mornings I don't write straight away. Most mornings I go for a walk or a run, and then I have a cup of coffee, and then I start writing. So even if I'm not going to write straight up, even if it's going to be an hour or an hour and a half before I actually sit down to work, I still open up the document and look at it, read over what I wrote yesterday, and that gets me into the brain space so that when I do have time to sit down and write, which will be in about an hour or so, I'm already in the right headspace creatively. Sometimes I might actually add a sentence or tweak a couple of yesterday's sentences while I'm looking at yesterday's work, and that really does help to really hone my focus so that once I start the following, when I come back from my run, once I've got my coffee in hand, I'm ready to hit the ground running. I'm not faffing around. Another trick is to write on a computer that doesn't have, or a device that is not connected to the internet, or it does not have social media. So you don't have your social media tabs open or don't have social media apps on it. So I have all my social media on my laptop and on my phone, and I have a writing computer, a desktop computer, and I have I have a browser that works on it if I really need to quickly look something up. But I try not to even open the browser. All I open on that computer is Word. I don't have my mail connected to that computer, so that when I'm writing, I'm not distracted. The laptop with my social media is right next to me. I've got a big desk, and it's on the other side of the desk. But I try to not check it in between sprints. Now, I don't check it in between sprints. Now, while we're on sprints, this is a recent addition to my tips and tricks, and this has worked beautifully for me, because this is a different way of sprinting, and it's not timed. It's a word count sprint. So what I do now is I write in chunks of 350 words. Now, you could choose any amount. 350 works for me. It's not very much. It's very achievable. And so every time I sit down to write, I have to get 350 words. I do not allow myself to leave the chair until I've got 350 words. Well, of course, because I'm not allowed to check my social media, I'm not allowed to get a drink or anything to eat or anything at all until I've written those 350 words. It encourages me to write those 350 words faster. I would really encourage you to give that a go. It is the easiest way to increase your word count over the week. Like it's almost like magic, because I always each day have a word count goal of 2,000 words, and so that's been slightly increased by I now write 2,100 words every day. I don't get there every day, but most days I do, because I get there in increments of 350. It's so easy to do. It's 6 sprints, six times I sit down and write 350 words over the day. It doesn't actually take that long. Sometimes I write more. So that is probably my final tip, is that concentrate on writing in chunks, in tiny achievable chunks, and you'll get there one step at a time. All right, I think that's all I've got to say today about finding the time to write. But I guess I just want to wind it up by saying, if you really want to be a writer, you will find the time. It's not always easy, and I'm not going to tell you to write every single day, even though I do think the more frequently you write, the better it is for your story and for your creative process. But it's not always achievable to write every day. But write as often as you can, and try and identify those little tiny chunks of time in the week where you could slip in a 10 or 15 minute session on your laptop. I've written many. In fact, I'm just trying to think. Almost not all, but quite a lot of The Art of Friendship was written on my knees, with my laptop balanced on my knees in my car as I waited for my son, either at gigs or guitar lessons. So it can be done. It really can. As always, if you have any questions for me about this, if you'd like some more detail, or if you've got a topic that you would like me to cover, please let me know in the comments, or you can comment, as always, on my Facebook page, or you can find me on Instagram too. I'm over there as well, or on Twitter. I'm all over the place. I'm everywhere. So, there's many ways to get in touch. Just pick one, and I'm really happy to answer any questions that you might have. I think that's it for this week. So I will see you next week. Happy writing, everyone, and see you then. Bye.